Now, there's no doubt about it that by far the most difficult decision upon Jon and Dave is all based on exactly how they are going to be able to balance the live-action adaptations of Star Wars Legends material entering into the Mandoverse or the Disney canon, and exactly how it's going to basically work in conjunction with other pieces of canon in the Star Wars franchise. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, one thing about Jon and Dave's treatment of The Mandalorian Season 3, we have seen that there's been a lot of fans expressing criticism on this, a lot of backlash against, of course, many of the episodes that a lot of fans called filler or a waste of time. But moving on past this, we know that Bob Iger is still to this day in a Disney shakeup with the executives, with the Disney board on exactly where Star Wars is going to go, exactly how it's going to be treated from, this point on forward, and where that's really going to lead to, of course, the other Star Wars spin-off shows and the Star Wars films as well. Now, we know that D23 this year is going to be a bigger deal than Celebration was because it's going to focus more so on 3 new Star Wars movies that will be announced that's going to surround the Old Republic, as well as a handful of upcoming live-action and animated Star Wars TV shows, the new slate of shows to be unveiled for Disney+. Now, with that being put out there and said, one exciting thing about Kathleen Kennedy and exactly what Bob Iger had to say has a lot to do with her future and the beginning of her fate at Lucasfilm and exactly where that's all going. Now, we know that to this day, there's been a lot of drama happening behind the scenes for Skeleton Crew and the Acolyte that keeps on going. However, with Lucasfilm now getting ready to announce several new projects at D23, with Bob Iger making drastic changes to the Star Wars roadmap to right-size the future of the brand. However, in a recent interview, Disney CEO Bob Iger went on to confirm something very worthwhile for the fans who have had high criticism toward Kathleen Kennedy. Iger stated the following: "We have overlooked this very carefully regarding our future slate of Star Wars shows, and we are continuing to right-size who will be leading these projects. We felt it was best to seek and allow different producers to take the helm of some of our major projects that we have yet to have announced that will be unveiled in the coming months. We felt it was best to diminish the amount of projects that Kathy would be producing to create more breathing room for different producers to take care of these said projects. And though we can't really go into who will be leading our soon-to-be-announced projects, what we can say is that Miss Kennedy will not be leading these projects anymore moving forward." Let me just stop right here for 1 second and clarify something. So basically what Bob Iger is saying here is that Kathleen Kennedy was fired from several projects as a producer, but not fired entirely just yet as the president of Lucasfilm. So let's just be clear about this, guys, is that this is not her getting fired entirely just yet, but it is the beginning of the end for Kathleen Kennedy, most certainly. Her getting let go as a producer for several projects is a big deal. It just goes to show you that Disney has not been happy with her involvement in Star Wars. Her role at Lucasfilm has been a disaster, and they just want her out ASAP. Now, we know that Bob Iger has had a lot of problems with Kathleen Kennedy, almost from, 2019 when episode 9 came to a close, where they realized that the fan division was still a thing, it did not resolve, and how she really made a big failure with the Kenobi series and the Book of Boba Fett. How she really meddled with a lot of the creative aspects of that as well. So, the thing about this that I think a lot of fans need to realize is that Bob Iger really is trying to create his own legacy, because he knows that the Disney executives and the board have been very unhappy with him. They want him out, by the way, by next year, 2024, if he does not improve things with the Disney parks, Star Wars, and Marvel. That's basically a lot of weight on his shoulders right now that he has to take, and that's basically what he's ultimately trying to achieve. Improving both franchises and Disney parks. So, the thing about this, though, in particular, is that it makes you wonder exactly which shows was she fired as a producer for. Well, we know that Mandalorian Season 4 has been going through a lot of creative changes, and it could very well be that as a beginning, as a start. We also know that there's going to be a spin-off related to both Ezra Bridger and Grand Admiral Thrawn that's going to serve as a side story to the Ahsoka Tano series, so it could very well have to do with that as well. There's also numerous animated material in the works and other live-action projects. Again, D23 is going to be huge by this September. We're most likely going to be learning about exactly which projects Kathleen Kennedy will no longer be producing, and who is going to be producing these upcoming Star Wars shows. We know one of which is going to be produced by Jon Favreau, and so that's a big telltale sign right then and there. However, continuing on, he goes on to elaborate again, we have been taking these baby steps in search of new leadership to better the brand. And though we already have chosen those who will take the helm, we aren't going to clarify who that is just yet. This is nothing personal against Miss Kennedy and strictly a business decision and a necessary strategy to test the waters of enhancing this brand with more quality-driven products. Apart from what Iger had to say, however, after Mando Season 3's finale, this does not mean, like I said before, that Kathy is 100% fired from Lucasfilm just yet, but from several projects as a producer. I want to make that very clear. The decision to fire her entirely is still in question for this August, and the executives are leaning toward making that depend on the success of Indiana Jones 5 and how it performs by this June. Though Kennedy was a producer for Ahsoka, she had zero creative involvement in that show, and it was all left to Jon and Dave, which, by the way, gives us all the more reassurance for the Ahsoka Tano series. Again, Dave Filoni mainly wrote that show, as opposed to, of course, Jon Favreau mainly writing The Mandalorian Season 3. If you guys, of course, enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett Luke episode, that was all Dave Filoni mainly. That was all Dave Filoni content. So if you guys like that, you can expect that kind of material in the Ahsoka Tano series. I think he's going to nail it. Executives are very much, led to believe that this is going to be the home run for Disney Plus Star Wars, and I believe so too. I mean, look, the trailer was very well edited, and I know you can't always go by trailers, I understand that. Look at what happened with The Last Jedi, but there's just something about the Ahsoka Tano series that seems like it's going to be a more well-crafted show, and we already know that Disney wants to make this the new flagship series over The Mandalorian, which is a very big deal because it makes you wonder, have they lost confidence in The Mandalorian, or are they just wanting to one-up the Ahsoka Tano show because of its connections to Dave Filoni? The thing about Kathleen Kennedy, though, losing her position as a producer for several upcoming shows is the beginning of the end. There's no doubt about this. It most certainly is. Now, again, she's not fired entirely. This all depends on the success of Indiana Jones 5 from what it seems now. That's the current concrete plan by Disney executives, so that's going to be releasing by this June, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of months. So anyways, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Gun in hand, we are alone again. From night to moon, we hear them moans again.